not working. This ok,
Começando.
É, mas aqui não. Why is it not going? Não. Doido. Eu sei que no outro tá pronto, esse aqui que não tá. Right. Aí, agora pronto. Ok. So working. Right.
Hi guys, my name is Dr. Andrew Trelaw and this is Flavia, and we're here about to do another live as part of our lockdown toolkit series. So this is our third recording. Firstly, we covered sleep and the importance of sleep. Secondly, we then covered water and the importance of water intake. And today, the topic we're going to cover is stress. So obviously, this is a pretty appropriate topic to talk about over the last 18 months to 2 years. You'd almost be inhuman to not have experienced any stress in recent years. And so we thought it's a really important topic to cover. So another reason we thought we should go more deeply into this topic is because we've seen so much stress placed on everyone in the clinic, and every day people coming in, really high levels of stress that we record. And so we thought we would just, talk about this a bit more. So we'll start off just defining stress. What is stress? So when we're under stress, it's basically, from a physiological standpoint, it's when our body goes into that fight-flight response. And so that's when our sympathetic nervous system goes into a heightened state. And in that situation, it releases several different chemicals in the body, including adrenaline and cortisol from the adrenal glands, which then starts to have a cascade of effects through the body, which then prepare the body for survival mode. Now, the difference between this particular cascade of chemicals occurring in the body in current day model versus going back many, many years is that we seem to be going into this response almost on a daily basis and for prolonged periods of time, as opposed to using this response when it's appropriate, when we really are under immediate threat and danger, like in the old days where we'd be in the middle of the jungle and we might be under threat by an animal.
Oh, well, in the days of today, if you get involved in a fight and you end up, using your physical energy for it.
Yeah.
That's more.
That's a good current day example, I guess, where once the immediate danger is then passed, we then return to a normal state of tone in our nervous system and our body and physiology. But nowadays it seems to be a prolonged reaction, and then that's when it starts to have an impact on our health.
So what happened is that the production of the cortisol and all the stress hormones, it creates a tension in our body. That this tension, it's a tension that it's created to fight. So it's created to use that physical tension. So what happens is that comes a lot of energy through the body, to your muscles, while all your other organs are shut down. So your digestive system gets shut down, because, in a fight, it's not important that you, in a moment of, that you need to fight, it's not important that you use your digestive system, that you digest food. Your heart rate increase just really pumps up, the blood flow comes up as well, which, if you think about it, for a moment when you need to fight, or like Andrew said, if you had to had a fight or run away from a predator, that's really useful. However, because we don't use this physical energy, these chemicals stay in our blood vessels for longer. That's what you mean?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And then they stay in our blood vessels. They can cause lots of effects. So we know the danger of having these hormones. So cortisol on your bloodstream, like it's acidic, can cause, can change your environment, your cellular environment, which would change all your responses, biochemical responses of your body.
And I guess a broad way of putting that biochemically is that all the inflammatory markers in the body then start to elevate. And so all those receptors and enzymes start to change, where we become more inflamed as a result of those inflammatory cells then being secreted, released, and proliferated through the body. So, and any time that our body is inflamed, it leads to disease processes over an extended period of time. And that's something we want to definitely avoid. And when we're going contrary to that, when we're healing, our body is doing the absolute opposite of those chemical pathways. And so that's why it's really important that we don't stay in a fight-flight response for a long period of time. And that's exactly what we try to bring people out of, or what people try to attempt to come out of when they're in that stress state.
Yeah.
So things that, if we were to break down those stresses into three simple categories as a triad, it would be, firstly, we've got physical stress. So that's obviously stresses that are placed upon our physical body, such as an example, and not a lot of people would normally think of it like this, but sitting down for long, extended periods of time, that's a stress in the body. Then the second category is mental emotional, and that's obvious. We've talked about that. So stress, trauma, emotional upheaval. Thirdly, we've got biochemical stress. So that's things such as environmental toxins, poisons, chemicals in the environment, in our food supplies, microorganisms. So that's the third.
So let's go a bit deeper on these examples. We're not going to talk so much about the physical stress, because the physical stress, the obvious one, is injuries, broken bones. Then let's go a bit more into the I think let's start with the biochemical. So talking a bit about the toxins. So where do we find toxins in our environment? Because this is important, because if toxins can cause stress in our body, and of course the most common stress that we know, it's the physical emotion, but if toxins can cause stress in our body, we want to know what they are to be able to eliminate them. You go for it.
Yeah. So maybe we come up with a few examples, like really mainstream examples of that. So let's look at food firstly. So with modern agriculture, we've got a lot more chemicals and toxicity produced with the foods that we eat nowadays, and in the soils that exist where the food is grown. So that's one example, and there's definitely ways that you can safeguard against that by eating locally sourced, farm fresh food, ideally organic or spray-free if possible, and seasonal. So that's one example. Secondly, we've talked about water in one of our other videos. So try to ideally drink water that's filtered, that's the cleanest, freshest source of water that you can find. Another good one is looking at your home environment. So that would include what sort of products do you have in your house, and what are you using to clean your house? So if you actually read those labels of those particular products, there's a lot of toxicity there and a lot of chemicals, and there's so many alternatives you can use that do almost as good a job, but with a lot less stress placed on your body by using them and being exposed to those chemicals, not just as a once-off, but over a long extended period of time, year upon year. So that's another one. And looking at your home environment and making sure that it's clean, it's not filled with dust, it's not filled with making sure there's not mold, especially in this part of the world, southeast Queensland. We know what it's like to have lived in a mouldy house, and so therefore that's something that you definitely want to be wary of. And what would be some other examples you can think of off the top of your head?
Did you talk about pesticides in the food?
I didn't specifically talk about pesticides, no.
Yeah, so I think that pesticides also be aware of substances in our food. So, you know, when you read a label, you see numbers or color, artificial colors, artificial flavors. They are toxins that are important to be mindful of it. I guess one of a few things that Facebook keeps sending me messages. A few things that we should also be aware is the type of food that we eat. So we go further onto this topic, and then we get back to how food can help with stress, because then it's easier to talk about. But I think these are the biochemical things that can cause stress in our body. And of course, we're talking, the most common one is the mental and emotional stress. And this one, we don't need to give a lot of examples. We all know what it's about. We all feel it. But why I wanted to talk about the biochemical is that from my own experience, what I realize is that when I diminish the biochemical stresses in my body, my stress response to my emotional stresses are much better and they faster. So now we're going to move on to how to support your body through stressful moments in your mind. And I think this is the beginning. You know, when you cut off toxins from your environment and leave your body free of toxins, is less load that your body needs. It's less stress, because when we talk about stress, is anything that takes your physical body out of balance. So it's less stress that your body needs to deal with, and then your body is free to deal with the hormones that we talk when you have emotional stress.
And builds resilience, really, because it's under less, it has less to cope with. So it can then be more resilient to the task that it's given in that moment.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Makes sense, yeah. So if we have some ideas of how to deal with stress, I think first of all, my first thing that I would say to anyone that is suffering from stress is looking after their diet.
Yeah.
And drinking more water.
Because they're normally the first things to go, right? When you're under stress, you know, people then go to things as their vices and things that have given them comfort in the past. They go to convenience and ease because they're normally under pressure and they feel like they don't have time to devote to putting much effort or mindfulness into what they are eating.
Yeah.
And it's the time we need it the most. So I think if you use the keep it simple, stupid approach when it comes to eating in those times of stress where you don't feel like it's another thing you've got to take care of and it's another it's another burden on top of your list of things that are going on in your life right now, and make it easy, and maybe just give you some simple principles to follow to just make a start where you also feel like it's achievable, it's an achievable outcome, and you feel like you're doing something good for yourself, and you can give yourself a little tap on the back. I think that's good.
Yeah. So I think the basics that I learned, it's so people say, oh, okay, I'm going to look after my diet. Do I need to diet, or what do I need to do? So our approach here in our house is just increase the amount of vegetables and fruit that we eat daily, our intake. So even if we're gonna have a pizza, we make a salad, you know. So then at least you have the counterbalance. And the 80-20 rule, so 80% of vegetables, 20% of the rest. So at least at least half of our plate normally is filled with veggies, no matter what we're gonna eat. And then keep the basics and the simple. So we normally do. We're not crazy, fish crazy people like some think we are. We don't eat gluten in our house, but we do have gluten-free bread and things like that. However, everything that we eat, we try to add more vegetables to it. So, as I said, even the days that we're going to eat pizza, I make sure that I put a salad in our house. And how I manage to keep making the salad while in times of stress is preparation. So we have a routine where every Saturday morning we buy our fruit and veggies. We come home and we wash them straight away. And then from there, we have a routine of like cutting the vegetables that can be cutted, and preparing just the basics to not become extra stress in our life. So we already have this routine on Saturday morning where we go to the market, we come back, we wash our veggies, we prepare our meals roughly.
Yeah, we'll just prepare the veggies so you don't have to do all the work through the week.
Yeah.
It's all done pretty much like 90%.
Yeah. Another thing that we do, we cook dinner and we leave leftovers for lunch, so we don't need to be eating out at lunchtime or preparing meals at lunchtime. That generally is really not convenient to have to prepare meals at lunchtime. And if you don't prepare, you end up eating whatever you can put your hands on in the middle of a working day or in the middle of the day. You go to a cafe, end up having a cake and a coffee, and that's your lunch. That's not great. So be preparing for that. I think this is the first one to diminish the stress. It's looking after your meals, your diet, and then in your toxins in your environment. So be aware that all these, I know that you guys want us to focus on mental and emotional stress, but just be aware that these things can increase your mental emotional stress if you're not eating properly, if you're not getting rid of toxins in your life, so, or in your household, or so these things can make it a big difference.
Huge difference. Another couple of things, if you wanted to take it one step further, without being extreme or radical, is doing some juicing as well. And it doesn't have to be every day, but
we're not talking about juice fasting.
No. So, just doing fresh juices at home, and it could be just for one meal, here and there. It's another thing to consider.
Okay, what else?
Another thing we wanted to talk about was...
so then how do we manage stress, emotional stress in the emotional manner? So a few things we have nowadays. There's so much that you can look for it, and there's the basic ones that everyone talks about, meditate and create a routine. I feel that stress comes without routine. So create a routine. And I think especially as we talked about on the sleep chapter, the sleep routine is really important. What time you go to bed, try to go to bed every night at the same time. What time do you wake up? Try to wake up every day at the same time.
Yeah.
This I find that it's one of the most important things to manage stress.
Because those things, I guess, are another way of trying to prevent yourself being overtired and fatigued. Because when we're fatigued as well, we then are less resilient to dealing with stress. So if you're taking care of that, that's another big tick, box ticked. And so it could just be so that if you're going to bed 1 hour too late, that could just be throwing everything out for you. You know, you could become tired from that, and then as a result, you start to be more stressed because you're tired. And when you're tired, you're not functioning well. So
and
that's
when
a
you're
good one.
tired, these stress hormones, they are already in your body. They are, because you need that adrenaline, that cortisol to keep going, right?
Yeah, you push through.
And that leads, and the tiredness leads you to not eat healthy as well, to eat more carbs, more sugar, more coffee, and more caffeine in general. So these things can make your stress even bigger. So look after the basics. So the 3 basics for Andrew and I, it's food, so intake of vegetables, sleep, and water intake, that we already talked in the other chapters about this too. So I think that this is really important.
So
what else, Andrew? I feel like if you can manage to take it. So we talked about 4 things till now. So the water intake, sleep, that we've done 2 separate chapters of that, food, diet, and look after of your toxins, environmental toxins, that all help you to let your body deal with that emotional stress. However, emotional stress, I feel there's much more things that we can do about it, and there's much more. If you create a way that you find best for you is the best. For me, for example, is meditation. It's like what everyone talks about everywhere they read about stress. It talks about meditation, but for me, waking up before Andrew and our son is awake and going. I have a special place that I put in my house, just a seat with a candle and a few crystals or whatever you would like, some flowers, or another idea is, if you don't like candles, put a essential oil burner if you like this sort of stuff, or a lamp. I have a salt lamp on mine that I like waking up at the dawn and meditating. So my meditation is very simple. I just focus on my breath, and I count my breath until 20, and then I count back from 20 to 0, and then I go back 1 to 20, 20 to 0. Sometimes I use a mantra. So the mantra that I normally use is a hum. It's just what it means. This mantra is being present. So I inhale, I exhale, hum. But basically, I'm focusing on my breath, and if there's any thoughts that comes, I let the thought. I pay attention to the thought, and if I see that I'm overthinking, or I'm too distracted, by the time I realize, because sometimes you're so distracted in your own head that you don't realize, I let it go, and I don't judge the thought. I don't feel that judgment on it, which is, it's something simple that everyone does, I think. Or that everyone knows, but it's like recommended by so many people, and that it works for me. Another technique that works for me, but we're not going to talk too much about, is the EFT, is the tapping. If you get on YouTube, there's lots of tapping exercises for stress. And basically, you tap a few points. So you start with the top of your eyes and you say, I'm really stressed, I'm feeling so stressed. Or you can put in a positive manner, like, I love, and they say, you need to acknowledge what you're feeling. So I'm feeling really stressed, even though I love, and even though I'm feeling really stressed, I love and accept myself for what I am. And then you come to the collarbones, to the armpits or ribs underneath the armpits, side of your hand, on top of the head. And you keep acknowledging that feeling. So even though I'm feeling stressed, I know I accept and love myself. But as I said, there's lots of videos on YouTube that I highly recommend you to go and look, because Adrian and I are not practitioners of EFT. This is what we learned. But EFT is a good thing. So we talked about meditation, EFT.
There's another really simple breathing technique that I was taught as well, called the double breathing technique. And that one is just simply inhaling for 4 breaths, as an example, and then exhaling for double the number of breaths that you inhale, double the number of length of time that you inhale.
On your exhalation.
On your exhalation. So you can breathe in for 4, then exhale for 8, and you can repeat that 10 times. And that double breathing technique has been shown in many studies, the effects on how that improves our physiology and helping to alleviate those signs and symptoms of our body going into that fight-flight response. And you've just read some information as well about the importance of breathing, haven't you, too far?
Yeah, so the breath, to remember the information. The breath is, it's really important. One of the things that that I read, so I've been reading this book that calls Breath, and he says that breathing through your nostrils is really important while you sleep. So he even recommends using a tape on your mouth, just to tape it up, and you can actually breathe through your nostrils, and that can help the body to release tension and stop snoring, stop sleep apnea, and these sort of things. So breathing through the nostrils is one thing that he recommends. The other thing he talks about, and this book is all about the research of this guy and medical research about breathing, and in the stress response, when you breathe slowly, it diminishes quite a lot. So the secret of the breath is not taking deep, long oxygen and exhale, or fast oxygen, because the more oxygen you have in your body, the less oxygen is available for your cells. So it's interesting. So the more oxygen you inhale, so if you're doing that fast breathing, this sort of breathing increases the oxygen level in your bloodstream. However, this oxygen is not available for your cells. And the oxygen is really important because it is it helps in the biochemical system to diminish the stress response. So the way to breathe, it is what Andrew just said: slow and long breaths with pause in between. So you can inhale for 3, like he said, for 2, exhale, hold for 1, exhale for 4. And through the nostrils, you can exhale through your mouth as well, but always inhaling through the nostrils. So that's another thing that it's something to think about.
It's a good one to use as well, like, just during the day, put a reminder on your phone and do it.
Take 5 breaths.
Do it a few times through the day, and that could make a big difference and turn your day around. Something as simple as that, and just reset you, bring you back in the present moment, get you out of that thinking mind, take your mind off that positive feedback loop when you're under that stress response. So that's a good way just to jog your attention.
Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about? I wrote down hot cold therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another one that we've come across recently, just from our own experience, is hot and cold therapy. And we did some just yesterday, actually, where we were exposing ourselves to warm temperatures with saunas and the like, and hot spas, and then bringing our body temperature down again immediately after into cold pools. And the relaxation benefits from that have just been enormous for me the last 24 hours. I feel my body's the most relaxed it's been in a long time, actually, since doing that. So, and that's something you can definitely replicate at home if you've got a bathtub and a shower in close proximity to one another, or I guess that's probably the easiest way to do it practically. Then you can actually do that kind of therapy at home. And it doesn't have to be for a long time, and it doesn't have to be repeated every day. But that could be another thing that you just try. There's lots of, and you can incorporate that with breath work too, in preparation for putting yourself under a little bit of duress with some colder, hotter therapy than just having a nice comfortable temperature shower. So that's something else that you could think about doing as well.
Yeah. Now, I would like to talk a bit, Andrew, about, okay, we have all these techniques that can help us to release stress, but let's talk a bit about mindset. Because I find that, like, there's people who, they pass through the same situation in very different ways, and it's all about their mindset. So we've been seeing that in our clinic a lot, like people who are really concerned and stressed about anything in general, but like, let's put with what we're passing, especially here in Australia, with all the lockdowns and borders closures and this sort of stuff, like this can trigger a lot of fear into people and a lot of stress but different ways, and then people deal with it in different ways. So we find that the most healthy people that we see in our clinic, they are the people who have a very specific way of looking into things. So let's talk about that.
And seeing life
But let's talk about how they see.
Yeah. So the old saying, do you see life as a glass? Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty kind of a person? And I think it's a good starting point, really. If you're that person who, I guess, sees and acknowledges the challenges in life, but then is quick to then find ways to overcome them and not get bogged down in it. So the people who are able to react to those stresses the fastest by seeing it as just a speed hump on the road rather than a sinkhole, and they realize that there's another side. They just have to look beyond where they are right now, and look at what they can do to action, to take charge and take ownership of their situation in their life and how the external environment affects it. They're the people who respond the best to stress that I've seen. Not taking it too seriously. People who realize that they're they have the ability within themselves to overcome the situation, and they're bigger than the situation itself. And I think if you can bring it back to controlling your own environment first and doing all of those things that we've talked about tonight, all of those things really brings it back to you first, where you're taking control of yourself and your lifestyle, then is a good starting point for you then to project and springboard from to deal with whatever it is that is coming your way.
Yeah.
Rather than just completely focusing on your external environment, i.e. getting home and watching the television and allowing that to dictate your mental state, as an example.
Yeah, or Facebook.
Or getting home and spending hours on your phone. So, remove yourself from the external environment in that moment and then assess, what can I do right now? Am I doing everything right now to support my own physiology? What's the answer to that? Yes or no? No. Why? And
Yeah.
then what can I do in this moment now that better serves me? And it could be one thing.
Yeah. So with Access Bars, we have some tools that help a lot to change mindset. Um, so with Access Bars, it's if you don't know what it is, it's just how can I say, quantum healing, that we have 32 bars into our head, and
What are bars on the head?
32 energetic bars on our head, and each bar it determines how you see life through different ways. So each point of your head, each point of the bars, it's 32 points on your head that run some energetic bars, and they are related to areas of your life. So, and then within the bars, like once you run the bars, it's kind of like balancing your system. But on top of that, it has some tools that you can use daily, and it's making questions. So we always make questions, or to the universe or God or whatever you believe, because it's prompt to answer this question. So every morning you can ask something like, you can make affirmations. So the most common affirmation of the Access program is, all of life comes to me with easy joy and glory. So what that means is that whatever happens will come with ease, joy, and glory. That at the end everything is going to be okay. And you can repeat that 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night. Another one that I love, it's like, I wake up in the morning and I always ask, dear universe, can you show me something beautiful today? Or, dear universe, how can I be a tool of the divine to create a better life today? So you always make questions, because our brain as well is wired to reply questions. And not only our mind, but our spirit is wired to reply questions. So when you make questions and leave the questions open, the answer will come. It's easier than you ask, I want to have a good day today. You can say, dear universe, or dear God, how can I
Another one's, how does life get better than this?
Yeah, so when things happen in your life, doesn't matter if they're bad or if they're good, you can say, how does it life can get better than that? How does it get better than that? How does it get better than that? So every time making these questions, it will bring more this energy of what you're trying to create around you. So that's other tool that I find fantastic. It comes from the Access Consciousness is the name of the technique, and it's something that I use daily, and it works. And even in situations that we cannot see what, so for example, all that is happening, we cannot see what is truth, what is not truth, and where do I fit in all this, and when this is going to end, all these sort of questions. But the right question that I love about that I learned at Access Bars is, um, show the universe, show me the truth that I cannot see inside of all this, or show me the other side that I cannot see, or show me what is hidden from me that I cannot see within such and such situation. And independent of the situation, you can use these tools, and you will also, and the universe will always provide this other side, or this thing that you couldn't see before. And another one that I love, that is the creation one, it's, what else is possible? What else is possible? So every time something happened, for good or for bad, you just say, okay, what else is possible? What else but say it with excitement and say it out loud, because these little things that you do every day, these little questions, can change your life tremendously, as it changed mine, and change your mindset, because then you start to wire your mindset to see and bring into your life what you want to create and not what is there presented to you. Another thing that I think it's more to the spiritual side that I think it's fantastic, it's visualizing what you want. So you are in a stressful situation. So, I don't know, something happened. I like giving examples because it make life easier. But let's say that, I don't know, you lost a job. So you lost your job, or you hurt yourself, cannot go to work. So imagine creating your mind before anything, what you want to happen. So create in your mind the perfect job. Start it with your mind, and then you can create your own affirmations, you can create your own visualization, and it starts to feel that. And feeling is the secret to creation. And then comes so it starts on the thought, then comes the feeling, and then comes the action. But while this is happening, while it's on the thought and the feeling, you're preparing yourself to create the action.
Impressing the subconscious mind.
That's what you like to say all the time. Andrew always says, let's impress our subconscious mind. So when we were looking to buy this house, we used to go to Airbnb, fancy Airbnbs, and stay fancy Airbnbs to impress the conscious mind. And it's funny enough that our house, even though we bought the way that we bought, it came the way that it came, it's very similar to the Airbnbs that we stayed at that time. Isn't it? It has like lots of things. So there's this idea of impressing the subconscious mind. So what is that all about? It's like a visualization of what you want. So every time you are in a time of stress and there's a situation, you try to don't avoid the situation to start with, and try to create the outcome that you want in your mind before instead of just juggling that problem over and over, just like, okay, what is the outcome that I want from this problem? Okay, I want an outcome different from what it looks like now. And don't focus on what it looks like now, just focus on the outcome of the problem. I think that's it.
I think that was about it, wasn't it?
I hope it was helpful.
So yeah, leave any comments. If there's any other topics that you want us to talk about going further forward in our lockdown tips toolkit series, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you guys could see this live properly. It doesn't look. Facebook keep telling me it wasn't good enough. Let's see. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.